Welcome and thank you for waiting. All participants will remain in a listen-only mode for the duration of today's conference. Today's conference is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I would now like to turn the session over to your host from the United States Census Bureau, Deb. Deb, you may begin.
Great, thank you so much, and good afternoon and welcome everyone. My name is Deb Rivera, and I will be your host for today's event on using the visualization tools on data.census.gov. This webinar goes beyond tables to highlight the many ways that users can explore data through interactive charts, maps, and geographic profiles. Before we begin, let's go over some housekeeping items. The chat panel is located all the way in the bottom right of your WebEx screen. As we go through the presentation today, please feel free to submit your questions to the All Panelists option by selecting Chat. And then in the tabs above, select the option for Direct Messages. And there you'll be able to select all panelists from the drop-down menu. Towards the end of the webinar, we will have some time to go over the questions that were asked through the chat panel. A quick note on the question and answer session today, we will focus on our main data platform, data.census.gov. We will not be able to go in depth to address questions on the topic of data, the collection process, methodology, or other census products. Finally, we are recording the webinar today, and all of the materials are going to be available through the Census Academy website. So with that, welcome again, and thank you so much for joining us. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Tyson Weister. Welcome, Tyson.
Thank you, Deb, and thank you all so much for joining the webinar today. I'm glad you chose to spend some time with us learning how to use visualization tools on data.census.gov. Deb and I work in the Center for Enterprise Dissemination, and we are the area responsible for the dissemination platform. So what we have planned today is going to be very heavy on visualization and live demonstrations specifically. So I will give a little bit of information up front, and we'll show a couple of slides along the way that have some different tips and tricks or summaries of different parts of the site that we covered. But most of what we're doing today is going to be showing you how to dive into those visualizations. So in comparison to a lot of our other trainings and webinars, those typically show you how to search the site and find data, apply different filters. We're going to be using those different filters and search strategies, but not speaking so much about the type of data you find, but more so what you can do with the data on the site once you find that. So if you are interested in more training on additional functionality and search strategies, I recommend taking a look at some of our other resource offerings. Today, we will be focused primarily again on mapping and charts. So we're going to start very basic. I'm going to show you how to get started with maps and charts. We are going to then, in our second example, tour the different features of the maps and then introduce you to line charts. We'll build on that line chart functionality in additional demonstrations. We'll show you how to visualize different types of tables, including tables from economic data and additional chart functionality that are pertinent to those types of tables. And then we'll wrap up with a final visualization option that we have that's a little more high level and includes population pyramids. So let's go ahead and dive into the demonstration. Before we get there, I just wanted to take a moment to point out some key steps that we are going to be reinforcing each time we go through these examples. So any visualization that you want to create on data.census.gov typically involves these key steps. You don't necessarily have to go through these steps in a particular order, but I tend to go through the steps as listed in these 3 bullet points. So the first thing that you'll want to do at some point is select your geographies and other key filters. Those could also be things like NAICS codes, which we'll see in some of our later examples that allow you to look at data across different industries. Then at some point, once you've made those selections, you'll also want to make sure that you have found a table that contains data you want to visualize. So all of the visualizations on our site are based on underlying data tables. And then you'll create your customized map or chart. So let's show you those 3 key steps throughout the demonstration today. Again, we're going to start very basic by showing you how to get started creating a map or chart. For this example, I'm going to find a quick search that's going to get me to a table that has data on household size, and we're going to map out the percent 4 or more person households for all states. Again, regardless of the specific data point that you're interested in, the strategies that I'm showing today are transferable for any type of data that you may be interested in mapping. So to get started with our example, I'm going to navigate here to the live site. You'll want to go to data.census.gov. And then one way or another, you're going to want to make a search, find a table, and add some key parts to your search, such as your geographies. So for this case, I'm going to choose to just do a single search where I'm going to type in household size, all states, and press enter. Anytime I use the single search bar, I always look at the filters in the upper left just to make sure the Census Bureau interpreted my search terms as I meant. And it looks like they did. There's household size and a filter for all states. Now, ultimately, we're going to, again, be spending our time in the Maps and Charts tab primarily, but all of the maps and all of the charts are based on the data tables. So in many cases, it's helpful to look at the table first, especially for American Community Survey or decennial census data sets. So when I click tables, you will have a results panel here as well. These are expandable and collapsible, so you can click filters and results to view or hide these panels across your screen. The very first table result, S2501, has occupancy characteristics. It comes from the 2024 American Community Survey one-year estimates. And we can see right in our face, this table has information on household size. So it tells us, as an example, how many one-person households, two-person households, three-person, or 4 or more person households across each geography that we selected. So in the case of Alabama, there's an estimated 398,615 4 or more person households in the state. And that is approximately 19.4% of occupied housing units in that particular state. So we know this table has the data that we wanted to map out. And that's the most important step that we're doing in this table tab. Once you've gotten here, you are 90% of the way to creating your visualization. So whether you want to create a map or chart, I'm going to create a map first. So we'll click the Maps tab at the top. Remember, I mentioned that all of our visualizations are based on the underlying data tables. So when you get to the map or chart, make sure that you're still clicked into the table that has the data you want to visualize. And then we'll start taking a look at our map. Just going to adjust my zoom here so you can get a better view. In this particular case, the site has recognized that I selected all states. It has set my map to state boundaries. We can see that visually on the map. You can also confirm your geographic boundary for your map by clicking Layer button and confirm here it's been set to state. And we can see state in the legend. So those are some indications. If you've selected just one level of geography, it's typically going to pick that up right away. The only thing that we need to do is tell the system, out of all of the estimates in that large data table, which one do you want to visualize? So you can visualize one at a time when you're in the maps. Notice it's set to one person household in this drop-down menu in the upper left. You can click the drop-down menu, and then you're going to see the options from the table in the same order that they were in the rows of the table. So we saw 4 or more person household early on in the table. It's also just as early on in this drop-down menu. Once we click this, it's going to map that data point across each state. I do want to note here, there are additional options. As you look below, we always default to map percentages if percents are shown in the underlying data table. That will be the default here. But if you wanted to switch to the total numbers, you could do so. And then some tables have different columns of a particular data table when they're kind of more complex data tables, and there may be some options to map out different data points by specifying a different column in this dimension option. But anyways, we want to look at 4 or more person household in the total, so I'm just going to leave everything as is and clicked 4 or more person household. And just like that, we can visualize the data across our screen and really interpret this much more quickly than we would have been able to do by looking at the estimates in the data table. So what this is showing us is that states in darker shades of blue have higher percent of occupied housing units that are occupied by 4 or more person household. You can zoom into the map, you can click an individual geography and see, as an example, in Idaho, 24% of occupied housing units are 4 or more person households. Now, when you want to chart this, if you'd like to visualize this information in a different way, at the top of your map toolbar, there's something that you may need to click first called More Tools. This allows you to access all of the tools available for maps, and you'll see that chart is one of them. So this is the best way to switch between maps and charts. When we click that chart button, it is going to remember the selection that we already made. So notice that it has remembered that we were visualizing 4 or more person households, and we start to see that data across our screen. So I just wanted to show you a couple options here. You can sort the data in the chart view in ascending or descending order. So I can choose descending and see some of the top states that have the highest percentage of 4 or more person households. You can also change the chart type from bar chart to column chart, which is kind of helpful. In this particular case, you see more geographies across your screen. And then another option that I wanted to showcase in this example, if you're working with American Community Survey data, you'll see margin of error, that toggle at the top. If you'd like to display the margin of error on your chart, you can just click the toggle and it will tell you what that margin of error is. So this is telling us, as an example, in Utah, if we added and subtracted 0.7% to this range, 31.3%, it would give us a range of values, and we are 90% confident that the true number of 4 or more person households fall somewhere in that range for Utah. So I'm going to turn it off as it was in the default view, and that's kind of going to wrap up our quick and easy getting started creating maps or charts. Remember, we selected our geography, we found the table that had the data, and then pretty much we just made a tweak to the variable that was in the measure drop-down menu. Now let's take this a step further and show you additional map features and introduce you to line charts. So in this example, we're going to look at percent veterans for all counties in Louisiana from the American Community Survey comparison profiles. Map it first and then create a chart. Back here on the live site, when you want to start fresh from the landing page, click the data.census.gov button at the top of your screen on the right-hand side. That clears everything out and starts us out fresh. And in the single search bar, the quick way to get to comparison profiles is just to type CP for comparison profile and press enter. So that is going to take us to these table IDs that start with the characters CP. And from here, we can add on additional filter selections. So on the left-hand side, this may be expanded automatically, or you may need to manually click filters to expand that out. I want to add here all counties in Louisiana. So as you can see, geographies are at the top. I'm going to choose county and follow the prompts. Choose Louisiana, and then all counties within Louisiana. And of course, counties refers to counties or county equivalents. So in Louisiana, we're working with parishes, of course. All right, so I've added my geography selection. I have comparison profiles. I'm going to click tables and find the one that has data for veterans. We can see that there are comparison profiles for housing characteristics, demographic estimates, economic characteristics, and then social characteristics. These, if you're ever feeling overwhelmed with how much data you're getting back, is these tables in the data profiles, which you can access by typing DP, those are great starting points for you to explore a lot of topics from the ACS in just a few tables. So in our case, I'm going to click on comparative social characteristics in the US, CP02. We're going to look at the rows of the table first. There are different sections of the table in capital letters: households by type, relationship, marital status, and you can scroll through these. Eventually, you'll see a section of the table called veteran status. Then there's a line, civilian veterans, and this is telling us in Acadia Parish, Louisiana, an estimated 3.9% of the civilian population 18 years and over are veterans in that parish based on the 2019 through 2023 American Community Survey. So this has data that we would want to map out across all the states. So let's go ahead and navigate to that step. Just like before, we'll click Maps at the top of our screen. Again, make sure that you remain clicked into the table on the left that has the data you want to map out. Here we're still clicked in CP02. We want to make sure the boundaries are correctly set on our map. We see county in the legend. We see the parish boundaries visually on our screen, and we can click layer and see that the primary geography for our map was automatically set to the county level. So we're all good there. Just like our last example, we need to tell the system which estimate do we want shown on our map. It's defaulting to the first one shown in our table. So I'm going to click where it says married couple households and choose veterans from this drop-down menu. Remember, we had to scroll pretty far down in the table to get to the veteran status section, and then we see civilian veterans. It's defaulting to %, and the dimension is set to the most recent data that's in the option that we defaulted into. So we defaulted into the 2023 ACS 5-year. If you ever want to change that, we could do it multiple ways. On the year button at the top of your map, you can switch between different years. So it is something to be mindful of. You may want to always manually check, make sure that you are being sent to the data set that you're interested in accessing. In my case, maybe I want the 2024 data instead of the 2023. So I'm going to update to the more recent of the data sets. And we'll give that a moment to load across our screen here. All right, there might be a connection issue on my end with that, so I will leave it defaulted at the data I was showing previously. So let's go back, make this selection. Okay, so we'll just leave it at the 2023 so I can continue to show you the functionality that I wanted to showcase. So scrolling down, I'm going to go ahead and click veterans, civilian veterans. And then this is showing us on our map the parishes with the darkest shades of blue have the highest percent of their population that are veterans. You can see here, once you scroll, you can zoom in and see, as an example, in Vernon Parish, Louisiana, we have 16.6% of the population being veterans. Couple things that you can do here. I wanted to kind of comprehensively walk you through some of at least the more popular options in the map toolbar. If you would like to add additional county level geographies, we can use the selection tool. There is a box, circle, or lasso. The lasso allows you to draw a custom shape. So I'm going to go ahead and click lasso. Notice that my cursor changed to a plus sign. I can draw a custom drawing on my map, and anything that is fully or partially contained within what I just drew is going to be shown to you in orange. And when I release that click, it's going to add those counties into my selection. So they'll appear as filters and then also appear as items being shown to you on the map. When you'd like to exit the drawings selection tools, just click select again, and it will change from that blue shaded box to not being shaded anymore. And then we get the hand cursor again. The hand cursor allows you to individually click geographies to select or deselect them. So I'm going to deselect the ones that I selected earlier. I wanted to show you the functionality for how to go about doing it, but we'll keep our analysis focused on Louisiana. I've mentioned the layer several times. That's the primary level of geography. It means you're going to see data, in this case at the county level, or you're going to be able to select additional counties for your analysis. We have the year button and data set. The data set allows you to switch between ACS 1-year and 5-year estimates. 5-year estimates would be provided for all counties regardless of population size, and 1-year estimates are available for geographies with 65,000 people or more. So we really want data for all counties. I'm going to keep the 5-year estimates selected. You also have the base map. When you start zooming in, you'll see more labels, and you'll also see street lines and street labels populate below. There is a basic or detailed base map. So if you just want to make more sense of the geographies that you're looking at, sometimes I like to switch to the base map. It will show you parks, airports, military installations, universities, and of course the streets as well. But I'm going to go back to basic. If I'm just trying to thematically map the data and see this data point, I don't need all that additional reference detail. Speaking of reference, we also have boundaries if you'd like to turn on additional boundaries. In addition to the layer, these would just be boundaries shown for reference purposes only. So let's say we chose the place level boundaries. You can zoom in and see, as an example, what county the city of Monroe, Louisiana falls within. Also on more tools, if you'd like to adjust the colors for your map, it defaults to this blue color palette. You can choose colors, and we have a variety of options for you to customize the visual display for your map. For instance, if we click orange, I actually like this one because I can see and differentiate the different shades of orange a little bit better. Also for colors, there's different transparency levels. So if you want to be able to see the underlying base map very well, you'll want to set the transparency slider to a lower percentage. That will make it a little bit more difficult for you to distinguish between the colors, however. And if you would like very intense, robust colors, you can set that transparency up to 100% and just customize the map to your liking. Also, under more tools, there are different classes for your map. The classes refer to the way the legend is broken out. It's set by natural classes. You can choose to manually switch to quantile, equal interval, or you can even manually specify what you want these cutoff points to be. So if you choose manual, scroll down, you can add additional categories to your legend, or you can customize the values. For instance, we changed 11.2 to 12%. Notice it will change that in our legend. So you can kind of make these things, again, very customizable to your liking on the fly. Also, under more tools, I wanted to show you very quickly the identify button. When you click that, you can click an individual geography on your map and see some details for the area you clicked. And finally, once you go through all these steps, you may be interested in saving the results. So for your map, you can click the share button. That's going to give you a URL that will take you directly back to this map. You can also share it on social media. And then we also have programmed print functionality. This is actually going to generate a PDF, and it's going to match exactly how you have things laid out on the screen. So if you want to adjust how far you're zoomed into the area, if you want to adjust how this is centered, you would want to do all of those adjustments before you click print. By the way, you can also adjust the label for this particular map. Maybe if you wanted to simplify it and say something like %veterans. And then once you click print, it's going to generate that PDF. The first page is going to be your map itself with the legend, and then additional contextual information in the subsequent pages. All right, so that's going to round out our tour of the mapping features in Mapping Toolbar. I wanted to take you over to Chart. Again, we clicked More Tools and then the Chart button. And we'll give that a moment here to load on our screen. On the left-hand side, I'm also going to click the Results panel. And we're going to click, in this example, to the ACS one-year estimates comparison profiles. We'll give that here just a moment to load. Okay, so when you have the comparison profiles, it unlocks the opportunity for you to create line charts. The reason I chose the ACS one-year product is the ACS 5-year compares two vintages, so we would just get a line connecting one point from another for each geography. The one-year comparison profiles are a little bit more interesting because we have more estimates here shown on our particular chart. So again, you would pick the variable that you want to make a chart of, go to civilian veterans, and then we can see that change over time across the parishes that are covered through the ACS one-year estimates. So as an example, in Bossier Parish, Louisiana, we see that the 2023 estimate was 12.1% for percent veterans. And then we can see that comparison over time. One thing that the ACS line charts note is whether those differences you see from year to year are statistically significant changes or not. So those are indicated at the bottom. If you have a unfilled circle, that means there's no statistical difference from the reference year shown in the diamond to the year you're comparing. So as an example, in Cato Parish, Louisiana, we see that the 8.7% veteran number is statistically different from the 2022 estimate of 7.6%. But in the case of Bossier Parish, Louisiana, we see that the 2023 estimate is not statistically different. Or actually, I said those backwards. the Bossier Paris is statistically different at the 90% confidence level, and the Cato Parish is not statistically different. All right, so let's go over to our next example. This is just summarizing some of the more popular tools for your map. So just as a reference for you in slide format. For line charts, I wanted to move beyond the ACS comparison profiles. All line charts will show you data over time, of course. The ACS ones tell you that statistical significance change in that legend at the bottom for you that we just talked about in our last example. Other data sets you're clicked into may have different options. So you may see sliders to customize the time period shown. And you also, depending on which program you're in, you may see recession indicators. So in the upper right corner of the screen, those gray columns are recession indicators. So we're just going to show you some additional features. I'm going to look at the top 5 countries projected to have the highest population in 2060 based on the international database. So again, starting fresh on the landing page, I'm going to click Explore Filters. I'm going to follow the prompts, choose International Database under the Surveys heading, and then I'm going to happen to choose the first data set. And then I'm going to run the search. There is one particular table for this data set. At the Census Bureau, we do population estimates and projections, both for the United States and even some international data, which is what we're viewing now. In this case, the population projections can go out to the year 2100. And we're seeing that the data goes back to 1950. One thing kind of noting here, we've been looking at tables before we go into the visualization options thus far. This table, we can see there's a row for each year of the data from 1950 all the way up to 2100. It happens to have picked a geography to show us the data for as a default, since we didn't specify a particular country or countries. And then your columns have all of the different data points. And we can see that in the year 1981, there were additional data points made available through this data set for this particular geography we're looking at. And the data points are here in the columns. So they can be wordy. You can hover over them if you'd like to read the full label. You can also drag in order to see the full label. And the scroll is pretty long. It goes on quite a ways. I'm not going to spend any more time on that. What I want to show you is how easy it is to visualize this data and make sense of it really without even spending any or a lot of time on the table. So I'm going to click Charts at the top. It is charting the data for a default geography, and it just is showing us the square kilometers of this geography over time, which has remained unchanged. We'll click at the top, area in square kilometers, and then we can see that it's actually a lot easier to view the data points from this table in the measures display. So we can see that we can look at fertility rates, births, life expectancy at birth, female population broken out across different age groups, infant mortality rates. And what I wanted to do was just something a little high level and show population at mid-year. So this is going to be total population projections over time. So we have our data point that I'm interested in. What if you want to add in more countries? We could have done that up front. You can also add in additional geographies through the filters button at the top of the charts. There will be global filters that includes geographies. And for this table, because it's an international data set, one of the options is W14 GENC standard countries and areas. So this is going to give us data for entire countries. I'm going to choose the button to select all countries. It's a lot of data, so I'm going to shorten what I'm asking to be returned to us. So notice at the bottom, there is an area chart with a slider that allows you to kind of custom specify whether you want all of the potential data shown in the chart or a smaller period of time. And you can just drag and release these sliders. I do already have this pulled up in a separate tab, so we'll just kind of look at that again. I've set the slider to roughly the year 2010. We've shown the data over time. And then you can start kind of honing in on a particular year of interest. So we wanted to look at the year 2060. What are the top 5 countries for population projections? We have China as number 2, India number 1, Nigeria, Pakistan, and then the United States. So those were our top 5 countries for population projection. And we also, again, get this very nice visual for how these projections are changing over time. Right. And just pointing out here, we have covered some of the main functionality on the chart toolbar. That's summarized for you in slide format. I did want to show you additional example visualizing economic data, both in a map and a chart. There are some additional nuances related to these types of data tables that will be handy for us to cover here. Those are considered dimensions, and it allows you to create nested charts, which rather than give you a lengthy explanation, I'll just show you visually what nested charts are if you're not familiar already. So we're going to look at the number of employees that work in mining across all states for our map. Starting fresh on data.census.gov, I'm going to click Explore Filters below the single search bar. And then for this example, we're going to start with our geography selection. So I see geographies. I'm going to choose state in all states within the US. Next on the left, I'm going to choose my NAICS filter codes. So under codes, you'll see industry codes, NAICS. And I'm going to select the option for 2-digit NAICS. So this is going to give us data for every possible 2-digit NAICS code. We're going to be looking at business data for these different industries. And the particular table we're looking at is going to tell us how many employees these businesses in these industries have, what their annual payroll is, and how many establishments there are. That data is provided through the economic census and an annual survey called County Business Patterns. So when you click Economic Surveys, Business Patterns, and County Business Patterns, that's how I'm going to choose to navigate to this particular table. We'll click Search, and I'm going to open up the table just very briefly to show you that it is very large. So we'll give that a second here. When it does load, it will tell us that there are 48,144 rows of this table. So it would be very complex to start diving in to the amount of information offered through this table. And probably we wouldn't need every single row of the table. We would kind of narrow that down a bit. Again, just like in our last example, sometimes viewing a table isn't overly helpful, and you can get a quicker glance for what that provides via maps or charts. So I'm going to go straight into the maps in this case and click the drop-down menu at the top. So this is telling me that right now I'm looking at the map of the total number of establishments. It's for NAICS 00, which is the total for all sectors. So it's not providing data for any particular industry, it's providing the total. For your flat tables, including economic data sets, you'll first see the variable in this section at the top. You can choose, again, first quarter payroll, number of employees, number of establishments, and annual payroll. So I'm going to look at number of employees. I'll choose that as my variable or measure. And then again, this is set for NAICS 00. I wanted to look at number of employees in mining. You'll see additional options to specify the context of our variable. So in what context are we looking at number of employees? We want to switch from all businesses to just businesses in mining, quarrying, and oil and gas extraction. So I'm going to click from dimensions, NAICS 21, and we are updating the context for what our map represents. It looks like I maybe didn't select, or I lost my all state selection. So we'll try that one more time. Apologize. Right. In the interest of time, I will show you on the slides our map should have updated to provide, of course, the number of employees, and we would be able to see as an example that Texas has 197 and 3 employees working for businesses that have paid employees in that industry code. And then for our last example, what I wanted to show was the geography profiles and population pyramids. So we're going to pull up the geography profile for Tippecanoe County, Indiana. So on data.census.gov, to access these profiles, I'm going to put in Tippecanoe County, Indiana. There's multiple ways to navigate to the geography profile. If you ever see this little pop-up window, it will take you directly there. Or you can work from the Profiles tab after you've searched a geography. So I'm going to go ahead and click this option in the pop-up window. And I do have this preloaded as well. So we see some key statistics at the top for Tippecanoe County, Indiana. And then what's nice about the profiles is that there are visualizations already put together for you, and you just scroll through and explore the different topics from the Census Bureau at a high level and some of those visuals. The first visual that you'll see in the geography profile are the population pyramids. So these are a very powerful tool. I can take a glance at this in a population pyramid format and know right off the bat this has a large number of people in age 20 to 24 year bracket and 15 to 19 year bracket. So this is telling us Tippecanoe County is a college town of a major university. In this case, it happens to be the home of Purdue University. So if I was trying to understand this in a table, it would take me much longer to make that determination if I didn't have knowledge going into this of anything about that county in Indiana. Scrolling through, you'll see different visuals for you, bar charts that are typically going to be shown. For each option, what you typically see is a high-level statistic. For instance, we can see 12.8% of the population is 65 years and older in this county, compared to 17.6% in Indiana as a whole. And then we get bar charts showing more detailed breakouts, in this case of the older population across a couple different age groups. But not just for demographics. You can look at these visuals for different measures on income, poverty, educational attainment, school enrollment, employment, housing, and much more. All right, so thank you. We hope that this is the beginning of your interest in the conversation for visualizing data on data.census.gov. If you have any feedback for ways that we can make these visualization features more useful to you, we recommend connecting with us. We always take feedback to improve our site. Look for the Contact Us button within the help icon, or just shoot an email to census.data@census.gov. That is not just for your ideas and suggestions. We also answer data questions. So if you're trying to create a visualization, we would be more than happy for you to connect with us if you need help getting there. We also wanted to make sure you're aware of our email updates. When you visit the QR code in the upper right, it will subscribe you to our monthly newsletter. This will alert you to the latest educational opportunities, system enhancements, and data releases to make the most of data.census.gov. And additionally, what we showed today was a live demonstration. If you would like some hands-on practice to show you how to work through the site, we have workshops that are offered monthly. There's a variety of topics. They're free of charge, anywhere from 2 to 3 hours in length. And the layout for those is you'll typically have an instructor that will do a live demonstration. You'll then have an individual exercise, time to work through it on your own, and then you'll come together as a group to make sure that you got the correct answer and everyone understands how to get there. These are offered on basic, advanced mapping on data.census.gov. We have a geography essentials. We have one on using the API, microdata access tool, as well as one focused on ACS and economic data. And finally, we also wanted to let you know if you would like to volunteer your time to help us in a more structured format to improve data.census.gov. We do have usability testing. We are looking for volunteers that are able to share an hour of their time with us. This would be a screen share session where we would set this up with you, have you share your screen, give you a set of tasks to work through, and ask you to verbalize your thought process as you're going through the steps. This just gives us additional insights on how users are intuitively interacting with data.census.gov and observing that in real time. So if you're interested, we're happy if you are familiar with data.census.gov, or even if you're not. We test specifically across different types of user groups, and visit our resources here or shoot us an email if you have questions. And with that, I will turn it over to Deb. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Tyson. And just one moment here. Sorry. All right. So in a few moments, we are going to go over some of the questions that were submitted through the chat panel. So thank you to everyone that submitted a question. Before we dive into those questions, I do want to let you know that we have set up a quick evaluation survey, and that is going to pop up once you exit WebEx. So when you see that survey window, please take a moment to share your thoughts with us. We would love to hear what worked well, what we could do better, and especially if you have any other suggestions for topics for future webinars or workshops. Now, if you have any questions remaining after we conclude today, or if you simply would prefer to email us your question, please feel free to reach out to any of the email inboxes listed here. If you are a member of the media, please contact the Public Information Office at pio@census.gov. And for general questions about data.census.gov from the public, or for training requests, please feel free to reach out to the Center for Enterprise Dissemination. We do look forward to hearing from you. Okay, so we can go ahead and transition to the questions that we received. And as a reminder, we will be focusing today on the discussion of visualizations on data.census.gov. So Tyson, we did receive a couple of questions. So if you're ready, our first question reads, is there a way to export maps?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So as of today, the functionality that we have is to print the PDF of the map or, um, using the URL from the share button is the way that you can save your results. And then if you prefer, of course, you could always use your favorite screen capture software to get an image of the map. There aren't additional ways to export a map beyond that functionality. So those are the only ways to really save the results from your map. But we do log feedback requests. We've had other folks ask for different ways of exporting or saving both maps and charts. So that's something that is an example of feedback we like to hear sent to us at census.data@census.gov. And because you've already brought it up in this webinar, we'll be sure to log your question already. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much for that question. And thank you, Tyson. And then our second and the final question today reads, I like the print view you showed us for the Louisiana Veterans Map. Are we also able to print a chart with those additional detail pages?
Yeah, thank you for that as well. Similar to the last answer I gave, we don't have that functionality for charts currently. So again, it's functionality that we've heard other users and will log your specific suggestion as a consideration for a possible future enhancement. We would certainly love for folks to be able to print the charts and save their results other than the URL, which is currently the only way that you can really save that. So in the context of charts, your really only option would be to use your screen capture software. I realize that limits charts that are smaller in nature and can be, fully interpreted based on whatever is visible on your screen without having to scroll. Um, but just sharing that it could come in handy for smaller charts that you may be interested in creating. And thank you again for your suggestion.
All right. Thank you so much for the question. And thank you, Tyson. And that is actually all the questions that we have for the Q&A today. If we did not address your question, we do encourage you to send us an email at census.data@census.gov. We do love to hear from you and help with whatever questions you have. Tyson, I will hand things back to you for final thoughts. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Deb, and thank you all so much for joining today. I did want to leave you with some final resources. We have a dedicated webpage for you to make the most of data.census.gov. You can visit the link in the upper left or the QR code. It will take you to our suite of educational resources. So this includes answers to your frequently asked questions, recorded webinars, short video tutorials, the workshop links that we shared, as well as several PDFs with step-by-step instructions. Again, we're here to answer your data questions and feedback to make data.census.gov work better at census.data@census.gov. And if you're interested in a training on data.census.gov, if you're part of a national organization and would like to request a training, you can request one by emailing sed.cedsci.outreach@census.gov. We also have data dissemination specialists located throughout the country. So there is a data dissemination specialist assigned to your state that is eager to answer all of your data questions and provide trainings as well. So to set this apart from us, my area is focused on data.census.gov, the microdata access tool in the API. The data dissemination specialists that I'm showing on screen are your local resource, and they are the jack of all trades. So they do trainings on all topics and tools that the Census Bureau provides, not limited to any handful of options there. So if you'd like to connect with them, shoot an email, census.askdata@census.gov, or call 1-844-ASK-DATA for this resource that they provide. We also, just noting here, you have a whole suite of materials at census.gov/academy for more learning resources. So we hope to see you at a future webinar. Thank you for joining today, and take care, everyone.
The webinar has concluded. You may disconnect at this time.